You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com, which you can get every other Tuesday on patreon.com/thunderquack. Just like, I wanted to switch it up. I wanted to switch it up and do the other thing. And now I've completely lost the rhythm of the whole thing.
But it was close. Just
but you know what?
Patreon
It doesn't.
Producers Brian
Yeah.
Murowski and JJ Samuel do. Or
you know what I forgot?
Get it late on podcast services across the galaxy.
Yeah, I forgot the early part. So you can get it early every other Tuesday on patreon.com/thunderquack. We're not going back. We're going forward. Only ever forward. Never stopping, never apologizing. Just like our Patreon producers Brian Murowski and JJ Samuel do. Or as Amanda just said, you can wait and get it late every other Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I'm one of your hosts, Amanda. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Cohen. That's really, now I'm really messed up. Who are you?
I am Amanda Conkin.
There you go.
You are Michael Cohen.
It's Tuesday, and that's what I'm going to blame it on. It's Tuesday and not Monday.
It throws
because
off
yesterday was let's just call it Turkey Day, because I feel like Thanksgiving is
I like
gross.
calling it Thanksgiving. Oh, well, okay, no, I don't like calling it Thanksgiving for those reasons. I like calling it Thanksgiving for Americans that get confused. Because I was once in America and I called it American Thanksgiving and they looked at me kind of weird. And I was like, because, you have American Thanksgiving and we have Canadian Thanksgiving. But you are correct. It was also Indigenous Peoples Day in the States. And I feel like it was the International Day of the Girl is something that I saw as well yesterday. So it was lots of celebratory things. But
I can't say as I saw that last one, but I'll agree with you.
I mean, I follow a lot of accounts like UNICEF and women empowering thing. I follow a lot of stuff that posted about it on like LinkedIn. Oh, the Gina Davis Institute as well. I follow on a lot of stuff. And if people don't follow the Gina Davis Institute, you probably should. They're like they post about all sorts of fun stuff about like women representation in media and then just like cool feminist stuff, which is neat.
Gina Davis is a swell human being. Yeah.
And she's created a whole organization about like tracking gender representation in media, which is cool.
Yeah. And she's made some of my absolute favorite movies of all time. Earth Girls Are Easy and The Fly, both of which she stars opposite Jeff Goldblum.
Wait, Jeff Goldblum is in Earth Girls Are Easy?
Jeff Goldblum is the main character, other than like Gina Davis is the main character in Earth Girls Are Easy, but he's the romantic lead.
I think I'm gonna watch that because I was definitely looking through Amazon Prime, and sometimes there's shows on there that I just would never watch, but they've got a lot of like old stuff, and I'm pretty sure Earth Girls Are Easy was on there, and I was like, maybe I could just watch this.
It was on Netflix for a while too, I think. But yeah, go seek it out, find it, watch it wherever you are, if you have the ability. The best thing about Earth Girls Are Easy is that you're way into this movie. A lot of weird stuff has happened, and you're like just along for the ride. There's these furry alien guys, and they're kind of hot, because it's Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, and Damon Wayans, senior, not junior.
What a great trio!
And Gina Davis is at the height of her sexiness. Oh boy, she is fantastic, and it's very 90s and it's very California. which is where it takes place. There's a lot of spandex and there's a lot of aerobics type outfits and swimsuits and all that sort of thing. It's a very sexy movie. Earth Girls Are Easy. The title should give you a heads up on that one. But then randomly in the middle of the movie, they break out into a musical number. And does it happen twice? Or I think it only happens once. But it's just like we're not talking like, oh, some characters sing a song. That's not what I'm talking about. It's a full-on musical number, like a Broadway musical number in the middle of this movie that is not a musical. But it's in there. And it's fantastic. And yeah, man, what a movie. What a movie. And then on the polar opposite end of the science fiction spectrum is The Fly. David Cronenberg's The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, wherein Jeff Goldblum accidentally combines his DNA with that of a common housefly with a teleporter that he built in his warehouse. And at first he seems to be developing superpowers like Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden his body starts to fall apart because he's metamorphosing into a human fly.
Way to ruin that movie for people. My gosh.
And oh well, it's too late now. And there's a great sequence in The Fly. It is spooky season. If you want to get creeped out, there's a fantastic sequence in that movie where Gina Davis has discovered that she is pregnant. She's not 100% sure, I think. If I'm remembering right, it's been a few years since I've watched it, because she's also, there's another guy that she was dating at one point in the movie, I think. I'm pretty sure, because then he ends up getting eaten by Brundlefly. So I think that she's like not 100% sure. She's also not 100% sure at what point in the process of his metamorphosis Jeff Goldblum, otherwise known in the movie known as Seth Brundle, impregnated her, and therefore whether or not she's going to give birth to a human child or as depicted in this sequence, a maggot, a giant larval fly, right? It's so good. It's such great 80s body horror stuff. Oh my god. It is
pretty. I remember those scenes very viscerally from watching that movie, and because I watched it quite young, I think. And
yeah, well, you know what? I will bet you anything that the first time that you ever watched it was on the Space Network, on like a Saturday evening.
That sounds
or something
right.
like that.
Yeah.
With commercial interruption and whatnot, and probably edited for television a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'll like when somebody says what I'm about to say, I'll be like, yeah, you're just being lame and old. But there is one instance where I think that this holds true, and it's with sci-fi horror. They really don't make them like they used to, and I think that that's just by virtue of the fact that there was a sweet spot with visual effects in the 80s and early 90s, like the late 80s early 90s, of like, we have pushed practical effects literally as far as we can without digital augmentation. And so you get they like, I mean, the Friday the 13th movies, you know, story wise, for better or worse, and they definitely get worse as they go because they get less and less budget. But like the first three, I would say, I like the first two Predator movies, the Alien movies.
Oh yeah.
I like I said, the Fly. Yeah, man. American Werewolf in London, which is like really early 80s.
Yeah. I actually
really,
liked
really
American
early Stan
Werewolf in
Winston.
Paris, which was the later one, like from
That's
the
fine.
90s. I enjoyed watching
Yeah,
that one.
American Werewolf in Paris gets a lot of flack, I think, because it is trying to be a sequel to a very, very highly regarded film, um,
Right.
and and exactly what I'm talking about. They don't make them like they used to, right? It's not to say that nobody makes them like they used to, because there still are people who are very dedicated to that art. And so movies do come out within the horror genre, but they're off the beaten path. They're not the mainstream movies anymore. The mainstream
Hmm.
stuff tends to have CG or is like a straight slasher, in the vein of like Scream, which they've just released the trailer for the new one that's coming out in January. For some reason, it comes out in January. So they kind of missed the mark on that
Interesting.
one.
Oy. Yeah.
But Scream, we left the number off of this one because we don't want you to realize how old these people are now. That's the subtitle. That's the full title of the movie. But oh, man,
Wow.
the trailer, I'm just like, can you guys just let it go? Can we not just do what you guys did with Scream and just make a new one? I don't understand, but that's fine.
I'm
We're
sorry,
getting
I'm
off
confused.
track.
Do what you did with Scream and make a new one? They are doing Scream. I'm confused. Make what you
So
do.
Scream, the 80s slasher movie had gone away,
Hmm.
and then
Oh, and then just like make
and
something.
then
Okay, got it.
Scream brought it back by being like,
Right.
hey, here's a postmodern take on that. Now, the thing to do in 2021 is to remove the postmodern aspect of it and make a genuine slasher film, which is what the Halloween movies are doing, but they're doing it by
Right.
continuing the 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 mythology, right? But like,
Hmm.
why don't you just make a new thing? But nobody wants to make new things these days. But to go back to American Werewolf in London versus Paris, it's the werewolves are CG. The werewolves are CG, and that's the end of the conversation. Nothing else needs to be said. Look, if you're gonna do werewolves, and I like the Underworld movies, but they lose it after a little while because they start relying too much on the CG at a certain point. Um,
Right.
in the first Underworld, they did a lot of practical effects. The stories in those movies are just god awful. They're atrocious, but
I
the
didn't. I
special
mean,
effects
it's the
and
first
fight
one.
sequences are great.
The first one is Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, it's Romeo and Juliet, The Matrix, and Vampire the Masquerade / Werewolf Apocalypse, which are role playing
Yes.
games, right? It takes
Amazing.
it takes those three things and smushes them together into one thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. The first Underworld is a good movie. It's good. It's not great. It's not amazing. It's also not
Yeah.
bad. It's just good. Um, I don't know. It hasn't aged particularly well. It has a very 2004, I think, is when that one came out. And maybe it was 2003. I'm gonna make a pun, Sheen on it. Um, Michael Sheen's in those movies. I I yeah, it's very much of that time and place. It's a post Matrix. I yeah. Yeah, Underworld was like, it was the sequel to the Matrix nobody specifically asked for, but everybody thought they wanted until they watched it. The first one's okay. Then the second one, like, they completely lose the thread and they get way too into the vampire stuff, and it's like, yeah, they kind of got up their own butts with that one, and then just kept going. And eventually it was like, this one's direct to DVD, but we're really gonna hold on to this as if anybody cares about this mythology. um but yeah, like I said, this is one of the few instances where I'll allow you to like be an old person on your lawn yelling at a cloud, because they really just don't make them like they used to. Because they used to give big budgets to The Fly, right? Like David Cronenberg, The Fly, like they're pushing that stuff as much as Aliens, right? The sequel to Alien, getting James Cameron in, and like just as much money as you can possibly throw at that. And it's all up there on screen, and because the thing about the first Alien is like all we got money for is one suit. So there's one alien and you just can't kill it, and it's great. I love the first Alien. I actually, it's my favorite of the franchise, but in Aliens it's like not that many moments in movies as good as when uh they're like sort of in that like half submerged hallway, and it's just like creepy as hell, and and you realize, because the whole environment is the Geiger, because the aliens are like terraforming the 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 base into their own environment, and you realize that like the walls are moving because there are like dozens of the xenomorphs all around them, and it's just like it's so good. Like that's good stuff, and you don't get stuff like that. They make alien movies, they still make alien movies. I think that they're making a TV show, I think,
What?
on
Really?
HBO Max or on
I mean, I believe that. I believe that.
Showtime. I can't
That's
remember
fair.
which network it's going to be on, but they are making one, and it's not Neil Blomkamp. Neil Blomkamp was going to make an Alien movie, and then that one didn't happen. Who's making it? Damn it, who's making it? Because I'm very excited about the creative team. Um, oh, this is going to bug me, so I'm going to look it up. But I the hope is that it's that they're going to use practical suits for the aliens. Um,
One can hope. I mean,
what's the
it would make
new
sense that
one?
you
Come on,
can like come
IMDb.
back to that and I don't know, be good.
Man, IMDb, you're letting me down. Alien TV series. Ridley Scott says FX's Alien TV series will never be as good as his 1979 original. Nobody,
Okay. Nobody
nobody's
asked you,
asking
Ridley
for
Scott.
that. Like, thanks Ridley Scott for being a real jerk about it. Like,
What a bummer.
I don't think it was coming for your title, man. I don't think
Yes.
that's what was happening. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, oh, it's Noah Hawley. That's why, because he's the creator of Fargo and Legion. I mean, obviously not the creator of Fargo, because that's the Coen brothers. They made the movie. But then Noah Hawley did the TV series Fargo, and then Legion as well. Which yeah, if you've watched either of those shows, you should be excited that he's making an Alien TV series. So hopefully he's got the proper head on his shoulders and knows we got to make this with practical suits. It's got to be like, let's leave the CG at home. But the other part of it is that CG is like, it really has gotten to the point where like you can do it and people don't even know that you've done it, right? Like, there's a lot of
Right.
stuff that we watch in Marvel movies where it's like, wait, that was like Spider-Man's suit in every
Yeah,
Marvel movie that he's been in,
yeah.
and not Marvel movie, every MCU film that he's been in, his suit is augmented with visual effects, right? And people don't realize that, like Captain Marvel, her whole suit is like, they film one on, like, she's in a costume on set. Tom Holland's in a costume on set, but then they go in afterwards and they like, with the Spider-Man one specifically, they
The
like
whole
get rid of
thing.
all of the wrinkles in the suit and stuff so that it's like comic
Yeah, that's
book
weird to me.
form
How can
fitting.
anybody think that that's real? It's like skin tight. It's airbrushed
Yeah.
onto him.
Yeah. Um it's also to the point that if you go back and you look at early trailers for Spider-Man Far From Home, at the beginning of the movie, he's wearing in the trailers, he's wearing the the armor. He's wearing the Iron Spider armor for like the whole beginning of the movie, and then it's not until later that he's in the regular suit, because he doesn't take the armor with him to Europe or whatever. But then in the final cut of the movie, he's just wearing his regular Spider-Man costume for all of that. I think, is that correct? I feel like that's correct. I might have some of that flipped, but yeah.
I don't
Well, and
remember it off the
there's
top
a
of my head.
whole fight sequence at the beginning of the movie that's cut from the movie entirely. So that's also part of that. But because like they didn't have to decide until they put the movie out which one of the suits he was going to be wearing, because they could change it at any point in time. Yeah. So that said, I I want to see a picture of a guy in a suit where it's just like he's just got like a turtleneck on, and then the alien costume, and it's just a dude's face, and you're just like, oh, that's neat. I just love that stuff. But the other thing that I always love
I mean,
is like they make something that's only CG, that's only ever existed in CG for a movie, and then you go to a Comic-Con and some dude has made it and it looks as accurate
right.
it does on screen, and
Yeah.
you're like, so you could have done it, you just didn't.
I
If
mean,
this guy could do it in his garage, you could have done it, but that's fine.
Guillermo del Toro does, I think, a really good like mix of practical and visual effects in
Yeah.
his stuff. I feel like he's one of the like artists of like that kind of filmmaking right now, in terms of like actually being able to
Oh yeah.
pull off some pretty good effects.
Yeah, for sure. Guillermo del Toro
Physically stuff.
still lives in that world, but it is very like it's also got all the CG too. That's why that like like scary movies these days don't really do it for me, because a lot of them have like that like the Insidious, Conjuring, all of that stuff, and it's like so much of it just reeks of digital effects that it's like this isn't like it doesn't work for me, because it's not scary to me when it's digital stuff, because it's like, yeah, because I can draw anything right, and it's like a
Right,
computer can
right, yeah.
draw anything, but there's something about, for me, and this is purely just an aesthetic thing and just my taste, um and I think where something like Stranger Things was really good at capturing that aesthetic, even though it was using a lot of CG. I there's something about practical effects and something being physical that, like, the xenomorph feels real, even though it's very clearly not. Like, it's very clearly a
Right.
person in a costume.
Yeah,
There's still just like an extra element to it that you can sometimes lose uh in that uncanny valley sort of thing when
I
when
was
you
just
move
gonna
into
reference
CG.
Uncanny Valley because that's what it is. It's like beside reality, but it's not. So you can remove yourself from
Yeah.
it a little bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was exactly where my brain was going to in this conversation.
We accidentally stumbled into a Halloween episode. I don't know if you noticed
I
that.
know, how exciting.
Um
Talking about Halloween things. Oh,
uh
okay. Then
yeah.
if we're going to do that though, I have a mission for everybody that is listening to this podcast,
Okay.
because I cannot for the life of me find anywhere on the whole internet where I can buy, rent, or watch Tower of Terror, the Steve Gutenberg and Kristen Dunst movie based on the theme ride from the 90s. It is great, and I would like to see it again. It has been 20 years, at least, and I would like to watch it. So, if anybody knows anywhere that this movie
Yeah.
exists, please let me know, because I want to watch it again, and I just can't. It's like nowhere.
The first thing that comes up when you search on Google where to watch Tower of Terror is an article from Screen Rant from September 6, 2021. Unfortunately, the movie isn't streaming anywhere. Not on Netflix, Hulu, Prime, or even Disney Plus. Which you would think it should be on Disney Plus, right?
Of course.
There's always the chance that Tower of Terror might be available to stream online in the future, but in the meantime, Disney fans can buy the movie on DVD and Blu-ray from a range of retailers. Amanda.
But you can't. Who sells DVDs and Blu-rays anymore? Thank you very much.
I mean, Amazon.
Come on. Maybe.
I'm on Amazon.
You can find Tower of Terror on Amazon.
Tower of Terror DVD. You can get it for $20, $13.74.
Okay.
Prime free delivery
to Canada.
There you go. I mean, it's not. I'm on .ca, so it's not telling me that I can't. Or you can pay more for $20. Yeah.
Okay.
You can also get Goosebumps: A Night in Terror Tower on DVD for $15.98.
That's not the same. See, import fees. I have to pay an import deposit fee when I order this on Amazon.
Yeah. So, of what? Of how much?
I don't know.
Import fees deposit may apply at checkout. It's gonna be like a couple dollars, and it's a deposit. Like if they don't charge you anything, I think they.
Ooh, I could get it Tuesday, October 26th. That's enough time.
Yeah. There you go.
Are they gonna pay me import fees? Do I have to pay import fees?
No, the import fee deposit is a deposit that Amazon takes in the off chance that you get charged import fees or taxes or duty for it coming into Canada. And then they take it out of that. It's almost like insurance, but it's insurance that they give you back if you don't get charged anything.
Okay.
They just take it and then you get refunded if it doesn't get charged anything. But they also, it's like if I remember right, they'll take like $5 or whatever, and then if your import fees are $15, they charge you is the $5.
I mean, that is fair. It does say plus $0 for import fee deposit, so it's not making me do anything.
You're fine.
Hey, I can get Haunted Mansion, Tower of Terror, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and Country Bear 4-disc DVD for $11.99. What? That sounds so much better. This is called Thrills and Chills. I've never seen Haunted Mansion.
I don't know why you wouldn't do that, except for the fact that.
But it's so much cheaper.
Are you ever gonna watch?
No, I would never.
The Country Bears.
Why would I ever watch those other things?
Or Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Haunted Mansion is on Disney Plus. I'm fairly certain.
Yes, I think it is. See, it's like obviously these things are don't they own? Doesn't Disney own Tower of Terror? Isn't that a Disney ride? Like, come on.
You know what though? Because Tower of Terror is Twilight Zone, there might be a licensing thing there, and so it might be difficult. And if it's difficult, then it's not worth it.
So here's the thing. I can get this 4-movie collection faster and cheaper than buying just the single DVD.
Yeah, so buy
I just don't understand. It just doesn't make any sense.
There's only 4 left in stock. What if I bought all 4 just so you can't buy it?
You're such a jerk. That'd be so terrible. I'm excited. Okay. I'm glad that you could help me with this, Mike. But it just seems like so antiquated that I have to order the DVD for $13.43. That's fine. I'm gonna do it because I've been complaining about this for long enough that I would like it. I did it. This order has been placed.
I'm glad.
Everybody should watch Tower of Terror because it's super fun. I'm gonna get it October 14th and I'm gonna watch it for Halloween. Oh wow, that's coming in 2 days? What? That's so fast.
What's your favorite Halloween movie?
Oh.
What's your favorite movie to watch at Halloween time?
Okay, I mean, it's not my favorite Halloween movie, but I do religiously watch Hocus Pocus every Halloween. Yeah. Like I have friends and we watch it and it's just a fun, good time. So, and I've done that for the last few years. So I do enjoy Hocus Pocus. And then I don't like scary movies. So I feel like I don't watch a lot of the regular stuff that people watch.
I didn't say scary movie. I didn't say scary movie though.
I know.
I said, what's your favorite Halloween movie?
Favorite Halloween movie. I know. But I'm just saying that most people associate Halloween movies with scary movies.
Yeah. Well, my favorite Halloween movie of all time is Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh, nice.
So I really just asked you that question so I could answer it.
So that you could say Ernest Scared. I
I
feel
just
like we've
love
chatted
Ernest
about this before.
I think
feel
we've
like I knew
definitely
that.
talked about Ernest Scared
I think
Stupid
I
on
knew
the
that.
podcast in the past.
Definitely.
It has an IMDb rating of 5.8 out of 10. And I think that's unfair. I think that I think that I'm going to look at Rotten Tomatoes as well. I want to see what Rotten Tomatoes has to say about it. RottenTomatoes.com.
I thought so. Okay, in Tower of Terror, just because I'm still looking at this,
Yeah.
Melora Hardin is in it. And I thought I like was seeing these pictures and I was like, "Oh, so that's the chick from The Office that plays Jan in The Office." I don't know,
Okay.
it's just this movie is like I feel like other people. I can't be the only. Did you watch Tower of Terror? Have you seen this movie?
No, and I don't want to.
Oh no, the girl like Kara could watch it with me. Does Kara like scary movies?
I
Or like it's
you
like
know
the
what?
Disney,
It's weird.
Disney scary.
Last year we watched quite a few kids scary movies. We watched both Goosebumps movies. We watched, and what else did we watch? I don't know. We watched 3 or 4 over the course of Halloween. And on November 1st, we watch Nightmare Before Christmas. You don't watch Nightmare Before Christmas. This is the thing about Nightmare Before Christmas, and people will go, "Oh, what's your favorite Halloween movie?" And somebody says Nightmare Before Christmas, and you what you have to do when somebody says that, you have to pull your hand back all the way, and you have to slap them across the face.
Oh.
Normally, I don't advocate for violence, but in this instance, this has to happen because Nightmare Before Christmas is not a Halloween movie. It's a Christmas movie.
I think it's a Halloween movie. It can be both. That's the beauty of
No, it's not a Halloween movie. It's not. It's not. Hey, Halloween just ended. Let's have a Nightmare Before Christmas. That's not the title of the movie. The movie is called A Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. Halloween's not in the title. It's not in the title of the movie. Christmas is in the title of the movie. You cannot watch it before November 1st. Or after December 25th. I will come to your house and I will slap you. The hardest you've ever been slapped in your life. Here's the thing. It's going to hurt me too. But it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Okay? So I just want everybody to be aware that The Nightmare Before Christmas is not a Halloween movie. Don't say that. If you do, we're not friends anymore. You should probably stop listening to the podcast.
Terrible.
Ernest Scared Stupid has a tomato meter of 17% with 6 reviews. It's got 6 official critic reviews, putting it at 17%, and an audience score of 50%. Right there at the halfway point, with 25,000 plus ratings. I don't think I have a Rotten Tomatoes account, but I think I'm gonna sign up just so I can give Ernest Scared Stupid 10 out of 10. Because
so I just watched Addams Family Values last night. I hadn't seen it before, but then my friend said that it's a Thanksgiving movie, so you have to watch it on Thanksgiving. And I believe that. I'm now, that is, but like, here's the thing. It's a Canadian Thanksgiving movie because in Canada, Thanksgiving happens in the same month as Halloween. And I feel like Addams Family-esque things are Halloween.
Yeah.
So it was like a perfect combination of like spoopy and
Kara does love the Addams Family, by the way. We haven't watched Addams Family Values yet, though. We watched the animated one, and then we watched the first live action one, but we haven't watched the second live action one. And then the Addams Family 2, the second animated one, is in theaters right now. We're gonna go see it at some point this month. I don't know if we'll get to see it this weekend or if it'll be the next weekend, but maybe Halloween's on a Sunday. Maybe we could actually just go on Halloween. The first one's actually really, like, the first animated one is actually really good. And I'm not just saying that because Oscar Isaac is Gomez, but it's not a factor because he is fantastic in that role. But it balances out because the fact that he is the animated Gomez means that he is not a live action Gomez, and that is tragic because he is I it, yeah, I mean there have been a lot of people who have played Gomez Adams on television or sorry, in live action I should say, TV, movies, whatever. Um and he's right up there with the best of them. Like they, in my opinion, they've all been good. I'm actually secretly, I don't know if it's that much of a secret. I think we talked about Adam's Family last year around this time because we were watching those movies. But it's not something that I wear on my sleeve. But I actually really, 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 really like the Adams Family. Um, like and not to be like a hipster about it, but like including the original like comics, which is something that I came to much, much later. Like, obviously, I think most of us in our generation came to it from the movies in the 90s and then the TV series, right? That came out soon after that
Do
to
I even? Did
capitalize
I
on the
watch?
huge
I don't think
success
I
of those movies in the 90s.
definitely don't think I know the
Oh, really?
TV
The
series.
TV series was on YTV.
Maybe that's the one that I am more familiar with, actually. No, totally. Okay, no, I
Yeah.
remember now. Because I didn't
Yeah.
watch Adam's Family Values, but I'm like, how can this be? Because I've definitely seen like a significant amount of Adam's Family content, I felt like.
And then there was an animated series in the 90s as well.
I didn't watch that.
And then there's the original TV series, which would have been like sort of a rerun type thing when we were kids, when we were younger, like early 90s, predating the TV show and like the live action TV show from the 90s and the cartoon. But and then there are obviously the comics as well, which are most of the Addams Family comic stuff is there. It's like a newspaper strip, and they're most of them are like single panel, like visual gags, sight gags, and I oh man, I always blank on the name of the artist. He didn't just do Addams Family, like he also just did like weird, like these just off color, especially for the time that he was doing them, these weird off color comics. And they're just they're just weird, and I love it. I love how like weird and creepy they are. Cartoonist, let's see, what was his name? Was it Charles Adams? Is that Charles? I guess, yeah, Charles Samuel Adams. That should
Interesting.
be easy to remember. You know what it probably is? It's probably that like my brain blocks it because it's like, well, it can't be.
So you can't forget that. So
Yeah.
don't store the information.
No, more that it's like is his name Charles Adams? No, it can't be. Why would his last name be Adams and then his thing is the Adams Family? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he fictionalize that? Nope, he but yeah. Yeah, his stuff is just like, it's just weird. Sometimes it's so weird that like I don't get it. Like I just straight up don't get it. Like there's like a visual gag that just like either I'm missing context because of when it was published, or it's just that weird. But I don't know, and I don't know that much about him as a person and the time period that he lived in. It's entirely possible that he was a problematic individual, so I'm gonna leave a disclaimer there that I don't know about the life and times of Charles Adams. All I know is all I know him by is his work, and his work is something that I enjoy. But if he was like a racist or something, let me know so that I can contextualize that in the future. He was probably racist. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that like he was a white guy who lived in the early 1900s. He was almost certainly racist. I think he died in 1960. He was. I'm fairly confident, not knowing the man, obviously, that. Oh no, okay. 1988 was when he died.
He could have, but contributing to like more progressive comments, maybe he was.
Yeah.
I don't know, who knows? Maybe you can let us know. Hey, I also, so because we got here tangentially through like other things that happened yesterday, I think yesterday was also like National Coming Out Day or something. And the story about like I don't know this version of Superman, but like one of the versions of Superman coming out as bisexual. Isn't that
Oh
like a thing that
yeah,
happened
let's talk
yesterday too?
about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Jonathan Kent,
Hmm.
John Kent, the son of Lois and Clark in the comics. So okay, so here's the full context. New 52 happened, right? New 52, the Flash went back and saved his mom and then came back to present day, and present day was all jacked up because you can't change something like
Present
that
day was
without
jacked
messing up
up.
everything. So he created it what's called Flashpoint, and then he went, "Oh no, this is real bad. I got to go back and I got to make sure that the Reverse Flash does kill my mom." Which is a really crappy place. It's like the most like gross Back to the Future ever, and Back to the Future is already pretty gross because Back to the Future is like, oh no, I went back and I pushed my dad out of the way getting hit by my grandpa's car, and so my mom never fell in love with him, but I got hit by the car, so she fell in love with me instead, and she totally wants to have sex with me. I That's
I
the
saw
plot of
somebody
Back to the
post
Future.
I saw somebody post something recently about the reason that the world is what it is, and he's like, "Oh no, we're living in the timeline in which Marty had sex with his mom."
Yeah,
And I feel
probably.
like
I totally,
anyways.
totally. He was like into it. Oh my god, Marty, you can't. Um,
Yeah.
so the Flash goes, I gotta kill my mom, and he goes back and he stops himself from stopping it from happening, or something. I don't know. I didn't read the actual
Yeah.
Flashpoint comics.
Yeah.
Uh, and then when he comes back to present day, it's the New 52. So his interference and then him stopping himself from interfering still jacks up the timeline, but it's like less jacked up, but it's still jacked up. So in that new timeline, a new Superman, along with all the other heroes, they're all new versions of those heroes, exists. And then people were like, we don't like this new Superman. He's kind of lame. And but then people were like, but that whole Batman Inc. thing, that was really cool. So like, is there some way that we could like keep Swamp Thing and Batman Inc. and like a couple of these other things? We really just want to fix Superman. And DC went, yeah, sure. And so they just had Superman from the post crisis, so the John Byrne Superman, so from the 1980s up until New 52, they just had that version of Superman and his Lois transplanted from that post crisis timeline, which is what they call it, into the New 52 timeline. And there's a great comic. I think it's called Superman and Lois. That is about them. They have their son Jonathan Kent, and Superman is kind of doing his thing, and but he's doing it like OG Superman is doing it, but he's kind of doing it on the down low. Like he's so fast and he's so powerful because the new Superman's not nearly that powerful. Because he's still like he's only been Superman for like 5 years or something. So like this is the Superman that's been that like it's tough to track time in comic books, but he's much more experienced and he's older, right? As opposed to Superman in his 20s, he's Superman in like his early 40s. Um and he's so fast and he's so
Because
powerful
that's
that like
really old.
yeah, by comic book standards, it is. Nobody ages out of their
Yes.
30s.
That's
He has
fair.
gray hair on the side of his head, and a bit in his beard. And he's running around in the black and silver suit with his beard and looks just as cool as Superman ever looks, because that's the best look for Superman. And they really woof the ball on Justice League by not having him come back looking like that, but that's fine. Um, and so he's been like saving the day, but doing it in secret, not letting anybody know. So he's like a volcano's about to erupt, so he jumps into the ocean and like punches a hole in the fault so that ocean water goes in and stops the volcano from erupting. And nobody ever sees it, and he's fine, and he's Superman, and everything's great. And he comes home to Lois in Smallville, and nobody, actually, I don't think they're in Smallville. I think they go to a different town. But I eventually what happens is New 52 Superman uses a new power called a supernova, like, or is that what it's called? I can't remember. Nova Flash, I can't remember. He does this thing where he, like, all of the solar energy that is stored in his cells, right, like all of the radiation from the yellow sun that makes him Superman, he releases it all at once, and it's just like this burst of energy that comes out. So when New 52 Superman does it, it basically killed him. He basically was like dying, and OG Superman, post crisis Superman, shows up and he's like, "No, this isn't the way that this is supposed to go." And New 52 Superman is like, "It's okay. This world still has a Superman." And like either he just dies and turns into dust, or I can't remember. Like maybe his part of his soul goes into the original Superman, so that it's like, oh, he's there. It's kind of both of them. in case for the 5 people who like the new Superman, like, don't worry, he still kind of exists, but not really. So like, get a little upset, but not super upset. And so that Superman goes on, like, he takes on the mantle of Superman and just like steps into that role, and after a year everybody forgets that even happened, and he's just Superman and nobody cares, and Batman's not like, "Hey, wait, you're not my Superman," and Superman's not like, "Hey, wait, you're not my Batman," and I was friends with Bruce and you don't even like Superman, like there's all this stuff, but eventually it just kind of goes away and everybody ignores it. But anyways, Jonathan, over the course of all of this, starts to develop his own superpowers. He's like a tween, basically. He teams up with Damian Wayne, Batman's son, with Talia al Ghul, so the grandson of Ra's al Ghul, who is like, he's the worst Robin, because he's just like, can't we murder people? Can't we just murder the bad guys? Batman, who is also my dad, who I don't call dad, I just call you Bruce Wayne. I think he calls him father at some point in the comics, but it's, I think in the beginning he just would call him Batman or something, and be like, I'm your dad, and he's like, yeah, whatever, Batman.
Whatever, Batman.
It was a bad relationship. Actually, I mean, Damian kind of came into the fore when Batman died, and Dick Grayson took over the mantle of Batman, and it was Dick Grayson Batman, and Damian Wayne as Robin, those were fun comics. But Damian Wayne Robin and Superboy Jonathan Kent teamed up, and they had a comic for a little while called Super Sons. But then Jonathan Kent went into the future with the Legion of Superheroes, and he came back like a year, maybe 2 years ago. I'm not reading the comics, I just kind of follow the storylines.
Yeah.
He came back a couple of years ago, I think, as like a young adult. Like I don't know if he's a teenager or if he was in his 20s. It's hard to tell, because from the age of 15 and older, comic book artists just draw everybody the same. So it's like, hey, this character is a 15-year-old girl. Oh, okay, cool. So we're going to draw her in her underpants. And she's like fully sexually developed. That's fine. That's okay according to comic books. It's actually really dumb and awful. And I'm painting with a broad brush. There are a lot of comic book artists who do a good job. But there's also a lot of stuff where it's like, hey, that's Supergirl, and she's very super womanly. But that Jonathan Kent, who has come back from the future and like hung out with the Legion of Superheroes for a while, has just recently taken up the mantle of Superman. I don't know what happened to Superman. Maybe he just retired. I don't know. Maybe he did the Nova thing and he's turned into dust too. Maybe Doomsday killed him again. I don't know. I don't read these comics anymore, because for the most part they're pretty bad. But he's taken over that role, and the issue that just came out recently revealed, I think it might actually be the beginning of his run, because I think the comic is called Superman Son of Kal-El. And Tom Taylor is writing it. Tom Taylor just did a really recently did a really, really great run on Batman that everybody loved. So he's moving over to Superman with this. And the big deal is that Superman, not Clark Kent, not Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, but Jonathan Kent, is bisexual. And so you've got a lot of people on the internet who are being willfully ignorant and not listening to the art. Like, they're not reading articles, they're reading headlines, first of all. Right. And they are very intentionally being obtuse about it. You know, your Ben Shapiro's and your Matt Walsh, like these
and your
idiots,
Dean Cain's,
and your Dean
weighing
Cain's
in on things, and you're like
the worst Superman. Both in the
Cain.
sense that his Superman performance was not really that great, and also he does not exemplify what Superman stands for.
No, and so many of the other ones do.
They do very well. Yeah, he said some nonsense today about Superman not being bisexual. Here's the thing, is that like last month, Tim Drake, my favorite Robin, also came out as bisexual. And so when they announced this with Superman with Jonathan Kent, I was like, oh, cool. So eventually we can have a storyline where Superman and Red Robin, I mean, I don't know what they call him right now, because for a little while he was just called Drake. Oh my god. And his costume was awful. And it's like, why would your superhero alias just be your last name? That's a really bad idea.
Who's Nightwing?
Well, Tim Drake has never been Nightwing. Dick Grayson is Nightwing.
Is that okay? Then Tim Drake is just a Robin, and then he calls himself Drake.
Tim Drake is the third Robin. So the first Robin is Dick Grayson, obviously. Dick Grayson leaves.
Don't say obviously when you're talking about Batman to me, man. It makes me feel dumb.
Okay. No, I'm saying for the audience, obvious. I think Dick Grayson being the first Robin is pretty standard. That's not comic book knowledge. That's standard pop culture knowledge, but that's fine. Yeah, it's hard not to know that.
Batman and Robin. If it takes place in Batman and Robin, I have some cultural reference.
So he leaves to go be Nightwing because Batman sucks. And he's like,
and then the Red Hood guy is next, right?
And then Jason Todd comes in,
right,
to be the new Robin, and the readers hated Jason Todd so much that the writers were like, hey, we'll set up a phone hotline that costs 99 cents to call, and you can call and you can vote to save Robin or kill Robin. And it was a landslide to kill Jason Todd. So the Joker beat him to death with a crowbar. And so Jason Todd was dead. So Batman didn't have a sidekick for a while. And then Tim Drake showed up, and Batman didn't find Tim Drake. Tim Drake found Batman. And this is the reason why Tim Drake's my favorite Robin, is that Tim Drake, and why Tim Drake is actually like, he's the true heir to the legacy of Batman, in my opinion. So when Batman died and all of that stuff happened, it was like, it was the battle for the cowl, I think was the storyline. It was like everybody wanted to be the new Batman, and I was like, well, it should be Tim, because Tim he was like, Batman should have a Robin. Like, Batman needs a Robin in order to exist, right? Like, there's like a balance to it. Otherwise, like he's too dark, he's too edgy, sort of thing. Like, not saying it in those terms, but just like he needs that thing to keep him like even keeled, sort of thing. So Tim Drake like put together he basically investigated Batman to the point that he found the Batcave and discovered that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and then was like, I'm your new Robin. And Batman was like, no, you're not. I'll never have a Robin ever again, because Jason Todd was murdered, right?
Because of all his team.
Until Tim eventually is like, fine, if you don't, then I'm just gonna go out and do this on my own, at which point Batman's like, well, I can't let you do that, so I guess you're the new Robin. And he becomes the new Robin. And then eventually eventually Jason Todd comes back and is like, ha, I was never dead. I'm the Red Hood, which was an alias of the Joker's for a minute, but now it's me. I'm the Red Hood now, and he's been the Red Hood basically since then. And at a certain point, when Damian Wayne showed up, Tim Drake stopped being Robin and became Red Robin. Red Robin was a character that I think was originally introduced in the Kingdom Come comics, which is like an alternate future for the DC universe. And it was like, oh, Robin eventually becomes Red Robin when he kind of goes off on his own to do his own thing. And it's like, well, that's not Nightwing. Nightwing's a different character. So eventually people were like, oh, that'll be Tim Drake eventually will become Red Robin. So the time came and they were like, oh, we'll make him Red Robin now. And and he was for a little bit. And then recently, like New 52, they broke everything. They ruined it all. It's dumb. They wrecked everything. It all sucked, especially like most notably, Teen Titans was a great comic before that. Like they like had a really long, great run from like the sort of like the early 2000s forward. Just awesome stuff. And then they just destroyed Teen Titans with New 52 because they were like, oh, they're teenagers, we'll make them all edgy and have attitude and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, you're making everybody edgy with attitude in New 52, so what does that mean for these characters? And it was like, oh, it means we're gonna ruin every last one of them. We're just gonna make them awful. And they did that. They just everybody's a total jerk, and none of them get along. Everybody hates each other, but they're a team anyways. I don't know, it's dumb. At least the first few storylines were, and then I stopped reading it. Yeah, and then so eventually I guess he became recently in the comics Drake, and his costume was just awful. It was like this brown is not a superhero color, by the way. FYI. It was like brown
I
on
mean,
brown.
I second that.
Yeah, it was brown on brown, and it's just like you guys, the Red Robin identity was like just let Tim have that. Let him have that. But I guess recently, like I think they've brought him back as Red Robin, and then revealed that the character is bisexual. I don't know if I mean, like, I think the headlines were like, oh, they're revealing that he's bisexual. I would more label it that he's like bi curious, because he's like, huh, maybe, right? And so it's like he's like exploring his sexuality in that way. I don't know what it is with the Superman one, because this is all very new, so I haven't like read any synopses or anything like that yet. But
Right.
I'm gonna imagine that it's similar. Here's the thing. So I just gave a whole lot of comic book history for comics that I have not read, but is mostly accurate. It's as accurate as you need it to be in order to go out into the world. I promise you that. This is all context from like Twitter and Facebook and social media in general. But here's the thing. Do you think that these are genuine efforts to make these characters more diverse and representative, or do you think that the bisexual thing is a way of just pinkwashing it? Just being like, they won't let us make characters gay, especially not Superman's son. So we're going to say that he's bi. So it's like, if a really hot chick comes up to him, he can still make out with her. And then everybody can be happy, right? It's like, to me, it's a weird thing of like, I want to celebrate it, but I also don't want to celebrate half measures, if that makes sense. Because I feel like it's really easy to go like, oh, this character's bi, have them kiss one boy and then never talk about it again, right?
Yeah, I feel like it'll play out in the execution of it, because like at the end of the day, it's awesome to have more bisexual representation because of the letters. It is one of the more
for sure
represented. And so, but it always is, I think you're right, in the like, will they let them actually follow through with this? And regardless of like in like however many years, if they do end up with a female, will it still be part of the conversation that they are bisexual? Right.
Yeah, because
And so
there's like a tricky thing in there, because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying that like a bisexual man who has a relationship with a woman is no longer bisexual. That's not what I'm saying. I want to be like explicitly clear that that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to get at is the idea that and again, I'm just trying to be totally explicit with this so that there's not any misinterpretation. Is DC Comics using bisexuality as a compromise instead of making characters gay because they see it as a middle ground or sort of like a halfway point? It's not. Let's be clear about that. It is a sexual orientation in and of itself, but pop
I get what you
culturally it
mean.
can be
Yeah.
treated that way. So is that what DC is doing? And I'm just positing the question. I'm not saying that they are or accusing them of it at all. I think I just want it to be like part of the conversation with this, like while we celebrate this, that we're also holding them accountable, that this isn't just like a, hey, let's do something to get some readers. You know what I mean? Like, let's not like I don't want them just slapping a bisexual label on a character and like a like new and improved flavor on a box of you know cinnamon toast crunch, right? And it's like, but this tastes exactly like cinnamon toast crunch. You just added more sugar, right? Like that's all you did. It's not you didn't new or improve anything. You just put in more. So it's like did they new and improve Superman? No, it's not even Superman. It's technically Jonathan Kent, the son of Superman and Lois. And will this be like a lasting thing, or is this like a flash in the pan or a gimmick? The fact that they did these two characters so close together is a thing that makes me a little bit cautious of it, because it feels less like let's write some cool stories and push a few characters in new directions, and a little bit more like, hey, we had a meeting and we need more we need more LGBTQ representation in our comics, so let's make these two characters bi, and we did it. Like, congratulations, all of us white men around the table, we did it, right?
Did you just high five yourself?
I did like the hands, like the
yeah,
like I'm like
together.
wiping my hands clean, like hey, we did it.
Okay.
Like, good job.
I thought you like high
High-fived myself,
like how they like how like like the white dudes in boardrooms high five themselves and pat themselves on the back for making
like Barney
choices.
Stinson.
Sure.
From How I Met Your Mother, Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes, I got
like,
that.
Bro.
I got
okay.
that.
Well, you made it sound like you didn't know who I was talking about, which I thought was really weird.
I just thought it was weird for you to throw in a How I Met Your Mother reference in the middle of this podcast.
Is that weird? How I Met Your Mother is like one of the most watched sitcoms of all time, I think. It's like,
because I like had to I just had to like quit it. It just petered out, and so I think it's interesting that people still reference How I Met Your Mother. Is it one of the most watched? How many people watched the last season of How I Met Your Mother?
I don't know how many it was by the end of it, but the last episode, I guarantee a lot of people showed up. A lot of people showed up to be like, so who's the mom? And it's like actually they introduced her at the beginning of the season, and she's been in the whole season, but it was how she met everybody else before she met Ted. But I love How I Met Your Mother. How dare you? I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of rough stuff in the middle of that sandwich, but the last season's all right. And the first 3 seasons are good. Man, that's the whole what season is it? I think it's season 5 is the season with Stella. She's the worst. I hate that season. I skipped that season.
Stella. Is she the Krog Maga person?
No. Sarah Chalk's character.
Oh,
She's
Sarah Chalk's character. Yes, I do. Yeah,
that leaves him at the altar. Oh my god. I just like.
Oh, I don't remember watching that far along.
Okay, so she leaves him at the altar and goes back to her ex-husband, who is the father of her daughter.
Right.
And there's like hints all throughout the season of like, hey, this isn't gonna work out. Which like we know it's not gonna work out because that's not their mother, right? So I otherwise the series would have ended when they met. So you know it's not gonna work out anyways, but you wonder like how's it gonna not work out? But it turns out that it doesn't work out because she's awful. And all throughout their relationship she's like she's always like telling him he's got to grow up and do things a certain way if he wants to be with her. And it's like he changes his whole life and he's getting ready to like move out to New Jersey to live with her and her daughter. And he's willing to just like completely give up
change everything.
like a lot of things in his life for this woman. And she's just like, yeah, it turns out that I still love my husband, my ex-husband, and leaves him at the altar and is just
Isn't the worst part about her that she'd never watched Star Wars? Isn't that like the meme?
That is
the only people.
A giant red flag. That is a massive red flag.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I feel like they do that on purpose. That
yeah.
Come on.
It's not that she hadn't watched Star Wars, because sometimes that just happens, right? Like sometimes it is possible to not watch a Star Wars, or like not actually like sit down and watch the Star Wars movies, right? To know them peripherally or to have experienced them in snippets and stuff like that on TV. But if you didn't have somebody in your life to go like, hey, sit down and watch a Star Wars movie with me, then it's entirely possible that you could have skated by just with pop culture knowledge of it, right? The red flag with Stella is that she watched it and then she lied to him about how much she liked it because she knew how important it was to him. But in truth, she didn't like Star Wars. And I don't know that Ted ever found out. Marshall knows and is like, you don't like it. And she's like, no, like the talking dog, like why, how do they understand it? It just says noise, but they all act. And
she's
it's like,
the worst.
And it's like, the things that she says about the first Star Wars movie are the sort of things that you're like, this isn't going to work, which is absurd to say, but also 100% accurate, because Ted loves Star Wars in that, right? One of my favorite gags in How I Met Your Mother is when they do the thing of like that Ted is always like the third wheel with Marshall and Lily. And it's they go through all of their Marshall and Lily's couples costumes, and it's like that.
And then always have Ted as the
they went as Salt and Pepper, and then there's Ted off to the side, and he's like, and I was Paprika or something like that. It's like you can't have a pantry without paprika. And there's one where it's like where they're R2D2 and C3PO, and then Ted is R5, the red one, the red R2 unit that blows like that shorts out. That Uncle Owen originally picks, and then it shorts out. So he's R5, and it's like, that's one of those ones that's like, that's a very good Star Wars reference. But then the thing that really bugs me about How I Met Your Mother and Star Wars is that they play really fast and loose with the stormtroopers in Barney's apartment, because he has two stormtrooper suits in his apartment I think in the first season, and they're meant to be it's the joke of like the sharper image. Oh, you can buy a whole set of stormtrooper armor, a stormtrooper suit. There's a joke in Friends about it when Monica's dating Jon Favreau. Moss, what's his first name? I can't remember. David? No, not David. That's the other one. I can't remember. But Jon Favreau plays the millionaire, right?
What's his name? Oh, you're driving me.
His last name is Moss because the program is Moss 365 or something like that. Pete Moss. Oh my God, his name's Pete Moss.
I know. I just heard it too as I said it out loud.
Oh man.
They just call him Pete in the like most.
They never say Pete Moss.
Yeah.
Maybe they do. And maybe we're just trying to make an excuse for why. I don't know about you. I'm going to speak for myself. I just got that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I've been watching Friends almost nightly. I mean, we take breaks because sometimes you got to take a break. You got to let it breathe and come back to it.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
go to sleep show for
Yep.
10 years, at least 15 years probably. And I
Yep.
have never gotten that joke
Never put that together.
in all of that time. I didn't watch Friends when it was on TV, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
I
didn't watch it until later.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's the joke in that of like he's of how rich he is, and Chandler is saying like, oh, does he have this? Does he have that? Does he have this? I and I think that Monica says something about like, oh, he's got everything from like the Sharper Image catalog or something like that, and Chandler's like, does he have the Stormtrooper armor? And she's like, 2 of them, and Chandler's like, could Joey and I come over and put them on and fight? It's fun, but so Barney has in the first season he's got 2 sets of this armor, which I think is meant to be a callback. I think that's meant to be a reference to Friends because so much of How I Met Your Mother is like inspired by Friends, right?
Yeah.
And then in later seasons they changed to like the Spirit Halloween costume, like they're not even stormtrooper costumes at one point. They're actually uh they're 501st clone troopers from Revenge of the Sith with the blue stripes, and it's like, and they're not armor. It's like the padded suit, like the padded vinyl suit costumes, not like plastic armor, but just like the, you know, like if you wanted to dress up as Superman and you get the one that's got like the muscles built into it, but instead of it being muscles, it's stormtrooper armor, and they're just like on mannequins, and the helmets aren't helmets. They're just like they're helmets, but they're like flimsy plastic, like a mask, like the mask with like the elastic strap on, and it's just like, I understand that you guys have less budget this year than you did last year, but like, what did you do?
Come on.
How does the Fox? Because it was a Fox show. It aired on CBS, but it's a Fox show. It's like, how do you guys not have access to 2 stormtrooper costumes?
Yeah.
How is that not just a thing that you can just wheel onto a set at any studio at any given time? Just like at least 2 stormtrooper costumes, real ones. Maybe somebody else was using them for something. But yeah, it always drives me nuts. It always drives me insane. Not because it's like, oh, consistent, continuity error or whatever, but because the point is that Barney Stinson is like stupidly rich and buys dumb stuff, right? He would never, ever in a million years do that. It's so inconsistent with the character, but that's par for the course for that show.
This is the best way to end the podcast, is with you going on some sort of random rant about like the inauthentic Star Wars representation.
Stormtrooper. There's nothing inauthentic about them. They're just garbage.
Just like well, I mean, I feel
they're
like
officially licensed
inauthentic
clone trooper
like worlds.
Yeah,
like what you would do if you had that much money and were a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it's the difference. It's the difference between a $5,000 stormtrooper armor set, because that's like how much those were back in the day. I know that because I really wanted the Boba Fett one, and it was $5,000. The stormtroopers might have been cheaper than that, but because Boba Fett's more complicated. There's like fabric pieces and stuff.
I get it.
But regardless, they're like thousands of dollars as opposed to a $45 clone trooper costume that you like wear for one Halloween and you throw away because it's not even worth donating it, because the helmet's broken because you put it on your head twice, because it's not really a helmet, it's just a rigid plastic bag, and really someone's gonna die if they put that on their face. Yeah, it's just no self-respecting rich guy who's flaunting his money would just go to the Spirit Halloween and be like, I'll take 2 of those and then put them on mannequins in his apartment. Like, it's just, if you're gonna go that far, it's not hard to make stormtrooper armor. It's not hard. It doesn't actually cost that much money. You do it for about $1,500, but whatever. All you'd have to do is call up a 501st guy and go like, can you just make me 2 sets of Stormtrooper armor, put it in the background of your shot, and just leave them on your set? They got the stupid swords every year. Like, the rest of the set stays the same. It's just one thing. It makes no sense. Yeah. If there were real Star Wars fans on that crew, somebody would have said something. This is a good place to end. We did it.
I feel it. I feel it. I feel like we got through a podcast.
We did it. We made a podcast.
This is good. Yeah. I feel like we covered
I'm really glad that everybody now knows the continuity of Jonathan Kent and Tim Drake.
Yep.
So that they can be excited about the fact that both of those characters are bisexual. Unless DC screws it up, in which case, roast them.
It would just be it would be super great if they could make out. That would be amazing.
It would be ideal. It would be
so good.
Yeah, that's really, if that's
the end goal.
If that's what all of this was for, then I'll be happy. Yeah, man. Superman and Red Robin just make. The thing is that there will be a lot of people who are really upset because there are a lot of people who ship Tim Drake and Connor Kent, the clone Superman and Lex's son. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. That's not a joke. That's not a joke, guys.
Nope. Yep.
Connor Kent is Lex Luthor and Superman's DNA mixed together. He is their son.
Yeah.
That's a thing in comics. And people really like the two of them together. And I don't disagree with that. I think that there's chemistry there. If you want to do that.
There can be more bisexuals in the universe, so we'll just have our fingers crossed for Connor at some point in time. So we'll see.
Good job. Good job, us. We did it. We made a podcast. Thank you guys for listening. I think next week we're going to do Enough Said for Marvel What If.
Oh, yeah. Right? I forgot that I was supposed to reply to that thread. And
have you watched all of it, Amanda? No.
Will I have watched it by the time the podcast is happening?
There's no way you've watched all of Marvel What If at this point.
I haven't.
The finale was good.
Okay.
What If was lots of fun.
I got relatively far. So I'll finish watching it. They're on my radar.
Hey, we went to Venom together. And we didn't mention it in this episode. And we both enjoyed that movie a lot, I think.
It was good fun.
It was a fun movie going experience.
Yeah.
I think that's the only review you need for it.
That is true. Yeah. Enjoyable time.
There's maybe some spoiler stuff that's worth talking about, but I don't think we're clear enough. You
can go somewhere else
to talk about it.
We're not.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it. I think that people should
go somewhere else and talk about it if you've.
Yeah. Cool. That's it. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. I think Curtis really wants to talk about Marvel What If. I'm kind of about it, but I liked it, but I don't need to talk about it. But he really wants to talk about it. So I think we're going to do that next week. I don't know. Stay tuned. You'll get something in your podcast feed. Don't worry about it. Thank you for listening this week to whatever this was. I don't know. What am I going to title this episode? I don't know. Maybe Halloween. I think that's the title. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more great podcasts.